about my story. So we're sitting there, and I get up and I'm in front of the whole dining room, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I sold candy in order to save up for my catering company. And he never knew this part of me.
Right.
He was like, ha, candy? Yeah, right. Like in the middle of the dinner. I'm like, no, stop. G, stop it.
When you look at young people now who may look up to you, I mean, you know, it's no secret that there are many youths out there who are products of their environment, who find the allure of selling drugs or getting into a gang really difficult to resist. And you are living a life now which is legal, successful, and inspirational. When young men look at you or when they read your book, what would you hope that they take away from your story?
That anything is possible. You can be successful in any field. I think this book is just...
Kwame, I'm watching everybody. We'll be right back.
Explore more shows from the Daily Show podcast universe by searching The Daily.
When 5 people... But it still makes me laugh every time I think about it. I was in my early 20s, dating...
वो भाग गया। Don't lie, sent me here too. I bought it new. I bought. Don't bring your money. I was in back on me. I'll kill you with that. Jello woman. I'll give you this one. I like this bag. This bag, this bag. One, what stage am I? 1, 2. Supposed to be leading. What's happening? That's why I hate Spotify. Yeah, piece of shit.
Yo, how's it going, broskies? It's you by the cops. So, yeah, sit back, relax, grab a.
Oh, what the fuck?
Bag of Skittles and your favorite grandma. I was at work one day. My girlfriend texted me, hey, can you come out to my college? There's a party tonight. I want you to come with me. And I was like, all right, you know, that's no biggie. Kind of last minute because she goes to college, you know, a little ways away. So got off the sped the whole way there. Surprised I didn't get pulled over for going 90 and a 70. But hey, you know, gotta look kind of weird. You can't really have fun. Kind of weird. You can't really have fun unless you're already drunk. So I get there and I'm just like, all right, I need a drink. I get me some White Claws, down a couple of those, and I'm vibing, alright? Me and my girlfriend are dancing, we're just chilling, and then I see a black guy across the room. And then I leave my girlfriend, go up to this dude, like, we just walk towards each other, okay? Because we're surrounded just by a bunch of white people. Like, there was, like, no black people at the party except for right? So we meet up with each other, we dab each other up, we're talking, we're hanging out, we're chilling, and we get each other's information, and, you know, we were vibing. Not gonna lie, though, that frat party was really weird. Now it's just everybody with their specific group of friends. They just sit in little huddles while the music plays, dancing around, being retarded. And it's not really that fun unless you know everybody there, unless you all go to the same college. Like, it was really good. I didn't go to that college, and I was just there like, hey, this chick's my girlfriend. Everybody's like, oh, yo, what's good, bro? That type of stuff. It was great people. I was already kind of drunk, so I guess, you know, I kind of forced myself to have fun. But it just be like that sometimes. But after a while, my girlfriend's friends were like, hey, this party isn't really vibing that much. There's another one down the street. Let's go to that. But before we left on the way out, there was a guy smoking a blunt. And we decided, yo, let's take a couple hits of that. So we take a couple hits of the blunt and then leave out. Now, we did have a designated driver, okay? Lofi's Big Titty Goth GF turned out to be the designated driver. She hadn't really been smoking or drinking, none of that. So yeah, we were safe, you know, playing by the rules, not breaking too many laws. But on the way there, we passed by this cop, alright? So we pull up to this party, and it was a anything but clothes party, right? So there were people wearing trash bags, quilts, bed sheets. I saw a guy that was decked out in a bunch of Bud Light, you know, containers, you know, like the cardboard ones. He had fitted that into a suit. And I thought that was pretty cool. Then I saw another guy that had fitted the exact same thing using Corona, you know, the Corona cans into a and I was just like, yo, that's cool, you know, everybody there was vibing. I like this party a lot. Again, not a single black person in sight. Felt kind of like the black sheep, no pun intended, but nonetheless, we were still vibing there. Then we heard the police sirens. Now, at the time, I was at the back of this house smoking a blunt with some random dudes when I heard the police sirens, and I immediately handed the blunt off, tried to find my girlfriend and the rest of her friends, and I could not find them. Now, at this point, apparently all the music had stopped, they had turned it off, there was a knock on the door, the police came in, and I had smelled like straight weed. Like, I knew it, and I was just like, oh my god, like, this is it, I'm gonna get arrested, and I'm like an hour away from home, dude, what am I gonna do? So I started trying to make my way out the back, but that was a big no-no. There was a cop sitting there, and I was just trying to walk away, you know, get at my girlfriend's car, try to see if everybody everybody else had already met up there. You know, I'm just walking by this cop, trying to make my way around. Like I was leaving. I wasn't even at the party. I was just hitting my vape, right? And this cop stops. And he's like, "Hey, you, come here." And I'm like, "What? Me?" So I go over to the cop, and he's like, "How old are you?" And I was like, 20. Because at the time, I was 20. You know, it was a couple months ago. And he's like, "So why do you have that vape?" And I'm like, "Well, he's like, give it here." And I was just like, no, which is dumb. I was high and I was drunk, and I was like, I'm not gonna give you my vape. Like, why? Which again, stupid decision. Probably should just gave it to him. And he just starts walking close to me. He's like, all right, put your hands around your back. And I was like, no. And I just turn around and I bolted. I hear the cop speak something into his walkie-talkie, like 10-4, blah, 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 whatever cop speak they have for code for black teenager on the run, okay, whatever that one was. And, yeah, I just didn't look back. I was just running around this whole neighborhood trying to lose this cop, and I was just freaked out. I'm not gonna lie. I was just like, dude, I'm not trying to get busted at this party. I'm, like, super, super fucked up right now. Like, I definitely would have got arrested for something. And the fact that it was over a thing, too, like, because the fact that I refused to hand over, my nicotine stick, he was like, all right, you know, I'm gonna arrest this kid. The only black kid at this party. And I saw nobody else around me who was also talking to cops. Like, I looked behind me, and I saw they were, you know, the owner of the frat talking to the cop, and they were all being calm and chill. The second this cop comes in contact with a black dude, he's just like, alright, hand over the vape, hands behind the back. And I was like, what? I was like, no, fuck that. Tell me out of all the at that party, you were drinking and smoking and stuff, you're gonna arrest the guy, probably close your back, this is really like 3 weeks before my birthday. Now, as I'm running, I look behind me and I see the cop. You know, he was pretty fat. Like, you know, homie needed to lay off the donuts, so I was losing him. So at one point, I go into the next neighborhood. I go into somebody's yard, and I hide behind their like little air conditioner thingy, and I just sit there, out of breath. Pull out my phone, text my girlfriend, "Hey, where you guys at? I just ran from a police officer." And unfortunately, I got no response. So I run back towards where I know we parked. We parked, you know, a little ways away at this store somewhere that was across the street. So I ran over there, find my girlfriend's car. Her and her friends are all sitting in there. I tap on the glass. They open up the door. I get in. I'm like, go, 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 go. And she's like, all right, you know, she's like freaked out. Freaking all over her friends and everything too. I was like, bro, cops after me. We need to go. We need to go back to the dorm. I need to hide. But instead of going back to her dorm, all of her friends wanted to go back to that other party we were first at. So we go back there. Luckily, the other homie of color was there too. So I meet up with him. I told him all what happened. He's just like, dude, are you okay? Like, the cops out here are pretty racist. Like, no joke. He was just telling me that he got stopped sometimes whenever he's out and about just because they think he's doing something. And keep in mind, like, at this college that my girlfriend goes to, there's like no black people. Like all of them on the football team, and that's pretty much it. I'm sitting over there freaking out. My girlfriend's calm me down too while I'm talking to this dude. They're both trying to reassure me that I'm not gonna, you know, have a wanted poster out for me on a billboard. So yeah, I was just sitting there freaking out for the rest of the time we were at that party. And eventually, I guess, my girlfriend's friends got bored, and they're like, alright, I'm really drunk, I'm really messed up. I want to go back to the dorms and sleep. So we all get back in our car, head back to the dorms. They all go their separate ways. I think somebody threw up on the way there. Remember, we had to pull over to a gas station. One of her friends got off the car and just puked all over a gas pump. But once we finally got back to her dorm, you know, we were just chilling in there. Luckily, her roommate was out, and my girlfriend did a little extra special something, if you know what I mean, to help me feel better. And, you know, rest of the night was good. I was vibing. I'm still here. Pretty sure the FBI isn't looking for me. You know, the cops are just like, another black teen being naughty. Well, we'll get him next time. Haha. At least I hope that's how it went. You know, they could be stalking me right now. I'm gonna bust in through my door and be like, look, you had a vape? You were 3 weeks away from being 21? Okay, that's illegal. Okay, no vaping. But, yeah, that's how my first frat party went. That was an experience. I don't know what it is about, you know, being drunk or high from the cop that just makes you really anxious, especially being black. For those of you that aren't people of color, you don't know how to explain it. It makes me nervous and anxious. Being, you know, high around the cop makes you even more anxious, so I probably didn't but the fact that he was going to arrest me, or the fact that I had a vape 3 weeks before I was able to legally get one, as long as he everything worked out okay, and I guess that's all that really matters. But yeah, if you can learn anything from this, don't go to college parties. They suck. Just get drunk and high with a couple of your homies in a safe environment. That's usually a lot better and a lot more fun. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this storytime video, slap a fat like on it, and if you're new, subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Also, go follow the Twitch. I'm going to be streaming later on tonight at twitch.tv/OGLofi. It's going to be linked down below in the description. But yeah, I hope you guys all had a fantastic day. I've been Lofi. Peace out.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed.
The years really do start coming and they don't stop coming. But I have a good feeling about this year, like a really good feeling. Not to jinx anything, I'm also very superstitious, but the energy I just feel for the next 12 months feels amazing, and I'm hoping either you're feeling that as well, or perhaps my unrealistic delusional enthusiasm is rubbing off. As some of my long-time listeners may know, especially if you have been here for maybe more than a year or two, at the start of every new year, I personally like to set a theme for myself for the 12 months ahead, and I like to share that theme with you guys. Obviously, I also set personal goals and I have personal ambitions for myself that I'm like privately working on, but my theme is like the overall tone I like to bring to every decision for this year. Every crossroad, my daily choices, my daily behaviors, I use it as a guiding philosophy. And the reason I do this is actually based on this psychology paper I read a few years back on what it means to live a good life, and what people who deem themselves as having a good life do or have or think about, and what they also avoid. And in this paper, it was published in 2021, they looked at over 200 people over an entire year, and essentially what they found was that people who articulated a grounding belief system and had a strong personal philosophy for their lives and for their year were more motivated, they were happier, they experienced greater psychological health, and they made more progress towards their goals compared to people who, you know, didn't have a guiding philosophy or just had goals by themselves. The reason why is because it didn't just improve their motivation, it improved autonomous intrinsic motivation. This is the strongest motivational source, and it comes from genuine enjoyment, fulfillment, personal value alignment, rather than external expectations, rather than a fear of punishment, a fear of rejection. We know it's successful. Having these higher order values, they sometimes call them, also helps with successful goal setting, because you're basically not putting any filler items on your 2026 goal list. Everything comes from this theme, everything comes from the heart, everything comes from the core value and core guidelines that are driving you from this year. A long tangent. Basically, it's just a way. Theme, first and foremost, is important. Last year, our theme was your year for trusting yourself. trusting your instincts, knowing what's right for you, what's wrong for you, trusting your ability to endure hard things. And this year is your year for doing less and achieving more. Think being picky about what you choose to take on. Think making your time and your energy quite an expensive, exclusive thing. Think really devoting yourself to one or two big ambitions or projects instead of feeling like you have to be a jack of all trades, master of none. Think especially fighting the pressure to do everything, especially in your 20s, and instead slowing down, being really intentional, and as a result, seeing greater results from your concentrated input, from your doing less to achieving more. So let me explain why I chose this theme this year, because there were a few other contenders. I'll tell you what they were. Pull up my notes up and I'll find out. Some things I tossed up this year were your year for simple pleasure, your year for asking for more, your year for taking your dreams seriously. All worthwhile themes, by the way, and like feel free to steal them from me, but your year for doing less and achieving more just stood above them all, because I think it was kind of a combination of them all as well, but also because I think it like reflects a deeper, broader revolution we're seeing in society of people saying, I don't want to feel like I have to do everything. I don't want my only value to be productivity. I want to be deep, not vast. Last year I was vast, not deep. I did so much, and yes, outwardly that looks like success, but I really just left the year craving like devotion to something, if that makes sense. You know, to revisit 2025 for a little moment, like that was probably the biggest year of my life. The gratitude for it is overwhelming, but I'm going to be honest, I think, you know, it really did take a toll on me. I ended the year being like, I went to Australia, I went to the US, I met like over 1,000 of you guys, the listeners, which was like probably the biggest highlight. You guys, side note, are just so smart. Like every time I meet a listener of the show, or like you come up to me on the street, I'm being completely serious. Every single person I meet is like the coolest person I've ever met. Like just so smart, so wise, so interesting. So that was a big highlight. I also started the YouTube channel for the podcast. I hired the first like ongoing team members for the podcast. I ran a half marathon, which like wasn't on the bucket list. Don't know how that happened. I adopted my dog. I bought an apartment. I moved countries. Like that's a lot of stuff, and it's all really good stuff. You know, I live in London now. Like that still hasn't like fully processed for me. And I think some things just kind of slipped through the cracks. I also started my other podcast, Mantra, which I guess I can kind of break the news here, like won't be returning for the second season. And that's sad to say, because it was something I was really passionate about, and I really felt like it brought out a different side of me. But I was in the doing more, achieving more phase, and I think, again, fell through the cracks. And like, to be honest, I just didn't have time for that project, and I just kind of stretched myself too thin, and I wanted to have everything that I wanted right now, not realizing that like by rushing through it, there wasn't as much care, and there wasn't as much like craft and devotion that is really important to me, and is what I give and try to give to everything. And I think that, you know, so that decision, that outcome of like not doing Mantra for a second year has really contributed to this thing. You know, you may hear this laundry list of things and be like, damn, like what a productive year Jenna had. Like that's a really successful year. And it obviously was, but I'm also very exhausted, and I think I've fallen out of love with what I'm doing, which I never want to have happen, because having passion and purpose for my work is probably like one of my core values. Doing more, you know, it's sexy and it looks good and it gets results and it gets praise and it gets you pats on the back. And if you're a people pleaser, you're a perfectionist, you're someone who always wanted academic accomplishment and achievement, like if you're someone like me, that feels great. But when you choose to do less and to be selective, I do believe you achieve more, not in quantity, but quality, which personally is what I want. Really what it comes down to, what this theme is coming down to, is alignment over exhaustion, intentionality over intensity, what we do for appearances versus what we do for deep values and deep desires. The way I've been kind of thinking or imagining this approach is imagining approaching my goals like I'm a student. And to be a student, to be a goal setter, like there is kind of two kinds of approaches. The first is when you want to know a little bit about everything. You want to be vast and have all this knowledge, so kind of move between this and that, and of course like knowledge is valuable just for knowledge's sake. But the second kind of type of student and type of goal setter looks more for depth and is basically choosing to specialize, right? The first, yes, you come away with a lot, but you don't have that same deepness to things. I want to treat the few selected things I choose to focus on next year almost like a PhD. You become an expert in your goals. You uncover deeper parts of something. And again, that word we keep coming back to, devotion. You devote time and energy. And I think that represents your love and your care, and giving that to a few things, or maybe one big thing you really want to do well, is, I guess, more meaningful to me at the moment. Now, obviously, in classic psychology of your 20s style, is there evidence for this? Like, there has to be evidence that this philosophy, on a bigger scale, take, for example, Warren Buffett. You know, he's just casually one of the richest people in the world. Of all of life's successes, but for the sake of this, top 20 things you really want to do or really want to achieve, and then draw a line below number 5. After that, ignore all the other items on the list until those first 5 have been achieved. That is achieving more. This is similar to the professor and researcher Angela Duckworth's idea of the pyramid of goals, or goal hierarchies, whereby she recommends that people identify their pinnacle goal, something that's like become a GP